Hello and welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour, the best way to turn $20 into $10,000 in the form of a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. We'll get into all those particulars later. For right now, though, right away, I want to get to our first special guest because we got a couple of races from Horseshoe Indy in this sequence, and we go through them on this pre-tape that we're going to throw it to right now. As the special guest for today's show, since we have Horseshoe Indy on the menu, a welcome change up to the lineup. We now bring in from Horseshoe Indy, Racing Rachel. Rachel, what's going on?
Hey guys, thanks for asking me to be on, PT. I'm really excited.
Well, and you see, I'm rocking one of your shirts. So yeah, I thought you'd appreciate that. Got to represent. You guys have had some great stuff going on. Big stakes races. We're recording this on Wednesday. You had some Indy stakes races. Give us the temperature of what's been going on at Horseshoe Indy. How's the meet been?
We did. It's we had the Hoosier Heartland and the Empire. They were both $100,000, and we had a $16 horse win the first one, and then we had like a heavy favorite win the second one. It's weird here at the end of the meet. Once August is over, it's September. A lot of you probably can hear let me mute John Dooley here, who's in the background. But
John's great, but yeah.
He's not in this podcast. But yeah, it's a weird end of the meet. A lot of horses, they're going to Kentucky. They're coming from Kentucky. Kentucky Downs is running, so a lot of them will go to run in those turf races. And obviously the Indiana bred trainers are wanting to get their horses the last few races they can here in the last couple of months. So it's definitely a time. There's been some pretty big long shots. Just last week we had two. I think it was Monday we had a $100 horse, and then at the end of the week last week we had a $100 horse. So it's been one of those last couple of weeks for sure. So it's a tough one, but these two races are pretty interesting. I think good betting races, 5 and 6 for today, Thursday.
Definitely, those are the two that are going to be on during our show here. And in addition, so the people who are playing in these contests, they make all their picks beforehand, but then we have people who watch along and sort of bet along with us. So maybe we can come up with a nice double or something to play in these races, Rachel. And we'll start off in this fifth race where we've got these Indiana bred fillies and mares, nickel claimers, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. How do you see this one? And then I have a goofy idea you can maybe try to talk me out of.
Oh, I love goofy ideas. This is an interesting race to tell you the truth. And so the way that I handicap is I'll do a cursory handicap and just see what I like. And then in the morning, the day of, I will look at the changes and the track condition and everything. Sure. So this is off of my 100% cursory glance. I handicap the race, but I'm not taking into account kind of what's going on. So if there's a scratch or whatever, we'll just deal with that as it comes. But I like the 10-11 on the outside a whole lot. Always Blossom's going to be my top selection. Renee Diaz, Gennaro Garcia is our leading trainer. This is a horse that honestly, took a while to break the maiden. Finally did on the slop. And then first time with winners, a third out, I'm not mad about. First time with winners is definitely a step up. Dropping in class. Looks like it could probably improve off of that race. Has the early speed that you need. And then the 11, Shirley on the outside. Another one with early speed. Klopp is 21% in the claiming ranks. He's right under Gennaro. But what I really like about both of these horses is they're 3 for 3 at the distance and the money. So Those are the ones that I like on the outside. The big drop on the 9, questionable. Chimes, I know has good speed figures, has the best speed at the distance between a couple of others in here, but has never won at 6 furlongs, so I'm a little bit leery of that one. My crazy thought is the 6. Matilda Burnham has been running really well. I love her. I interviewed her the other day. She's a crazy horse girl like me, so obviously gets points there.
We
Lily
like those.
Gonzalez. Yep. Crazy horse girls are the best. Except for the memes that are always like, what girl do you not like? Horse girls. They're nuts. Have you seen that reel?
That's not how we roll around
No,
here.
not in horse racing Twitter. We don't. Lily Gonzalez in the last 7 racing days is has 3 wins and a third, and was second last time in the drop. So that's my crazy thought. But yeah, those are horses I like. Did I steal your crazy thought?
No, I
Okay.
have a different crazy thought, but I do think that's an interesting one on this CVF2 Brutus as one that could shake things up in the contest. And it's maybe a similar angle in that I definitely see your point on those runners on the outside, but I was also seeing a world in which they could hook up. There's some others that get ambitious in terms of speed here, and maybe we could get something from off the pace. I agree with you. I do not trust Chimes on the drop. So looking through the PPs of number 7, Out of Promises, this one, did not do a whole lot of running off the break against many of these, was bet fairly heavily. I was just thinking, maybe the story of this one's last couple of races is just, breaking way too slowly. What if she can break a little bit better and get in mid-pack and then show some of that later kick that she showed a little bit earlier in her career, winning her maiden at First Asking. Langmeyer, a trainer I really trust a lot. It has fine horseman who's delivered plenty of long shots along the way. Can you offer me any hope on my Out of Promises idea?
I honestly, at first glance, what I wrote about this one is she has the same similar draw so a different draw. She's in the middle of the pack this time, whereas she was on the outside towards an 8-horse field. So that could have had something to do with it. Now she's sort of sandwiched a little bit. The thing that I like about this one is comes out and breaks the maiden at 5.5, and then they switch it all up and they route her on turf, and it's her first time with winners. You could just throw a line through that one.
Yep.
And then you just said it. She had trouble the last 2. I think Out of Promises has every excuse, especially if you're looking to score a BCBCC. You want to go against the grain. So I like the 7. So our crazy thoughts are 6 and 7, eh?
There you go. We'll see if we can get one of them up, and we'll be betting these races individually as well. Let's talk about this 6th race for a couple of minutes. We've got Indiana bred fillies and mares again. Nice looking turf race here. We're going a mile and a 16th. We've got a field of 9 signed on. Who do you like the best?
I think this one's kind of wide open, to tell you the truth. Everybody has that very similar 75 to 72 Brisnet speed figure. I like to look at the speed figure at the particular distance, and surface is a bonus. And I swear they're all like right there together. But I went with Stormy Wagers. Fernando just won that big $1.7 million race at Kentucky Downs. He's been hot the last couple weeks here. He's aboard for Mike Moneymaker. And this one has been close in its last couple, because we're going the long distance on the turf today, and has put up a 75 at this distance, was the beaten favorite, and Maker's got a high percentage as the beaten favorite. So I think it's the 4's race to lose. The 1 single her, the rail's hot on the grass going 2 turns, and obviously the stats for this one are 4 or 5 of 6, but not as good of a speed figure as, say, the 8, the 9 on the outside, Spotty Showers. Sammy Bermudez, Lauer is coming off 2 wins. So I like that one. But I think one that I think is going to be interesting, it might be a little bit longer of a shot, is the 8. Well, it's 6-1, but I think maybe closer to post not going to be that way. This one's coming off a freshening, 55 days. The Dam has produced a turf winner. It is first on grass, but look at these races. Broke the maiden by 6.5, and then goes straight into a stakes race. And that back home race was tough. Back home again race was tough. And then ends up, when it was just in a straight allowance, wins by a neck and was even wide. I mean, came around wide in that race. So I think the 8 might be one that would be good to try to jump into that contest.
Love it. And that's exactly who I came up with, Belgian Blue. Noticed about pedigree. Munnings, they'll run on turf. And then you mentioned about the winner in the female family. So, and Brendan Walsh obviously knows a thing or two about turf runners. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. We'll win or lose together, I think, in this race, especially.
Great minds think alike.
Let's hope it's a case of great minds think alike and not the sadder corollary. Fools seldom differ. You gotta get the right side of that line to make it work.
When Brian and I are on the same horses, we pretty much know it's the kiss of death. Like if we're handicapping a race together, a stakes race, and we're on the same horse, he literally looks at me. He's like, "Well, we're screwed." So
that's fantastic. We haven't had Brian on in a while. We'll have to get him back on these airwaves at some point too. Give him our regards. Really appreciate you coming on here today. We'll look for you on the simulcast feed, and I'm sure we'll come up with some reasons to have you back on soon. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, PTF, I'll see you later. Thanks so much.
That was cool. Always great to have Rachel on. Getting in the happy hour spirit here with an Italian-style Pilsner from Henderson Brewing Company. So, we're getting off. We're doing this right. Let us know what you're drinking out there in the comments. Give us your thoughts on these races. Getting ready to go to post here for Indy, and then we'll quickly head over to Belmont at Aqueduct. There we go. Looks like they're getting ready to go here. We'll see if these long shots we talked about, especially my 7, can do any running. That would be a lot of fun. I just don't trust this 9 at 4 to 5. So we'll see what's going on with that. While they're milling around behind the gate, AJ, why don't we take a quick look at what's happened so far in terms of the leaderboard for today's contest? If you have it there, if you don't worry about it. Not a big deal. Dustin, giving props to Rachel in the comments. We like that. Big fan of hers. She does a great job, great enthusiasm. And hey, she sent me that cool t-shirt. So that's cool. So yeah, we're just underway here, all to play for, but we'll just give some shout outs to Mike Coutu, Julie LeBoyko. They've got 2020 perfect vision to start off this contest. John Manarino, Ray DiCarlo, Jeff Van Dree, Jorge Palsa, Michelle Mount, Julie LeBoyko again, Troy Robertson, Michael Sussman. I'll give one more who's up there early. Ryan Henderson. I don't think any relation to the Henderson Brewing Company. A couple of former champions up there as well. Horseplayer Tour winners, Greg Kingma and David Browning out there. Again, let us know where in the world you're watching as you'll scroll through that leaderboard. You can obviously find that horseplayers.com, horseplayers.com, the place to participate in Horseplayer Happy Hour. And it's not too late. We've got a couple of weeks left. You only have to play 1 week to potentially participate in the $20,000 added to this prize pool by In the Money Media and the Breeders' Cup. One of my favorite things that we're involved in. I love giving away money, or more accurately, I love giving away other people's money. And that's basically what we get to do here. You finish in the top 2 any week, you can qualify for our playoffs. Those will be starting in just a few weeks. We start with a field of 80, and we winnow down to just one person who will win our playoffs and that added Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seat. So, yeah, we can rock that Indy picture anytime, AJ, so I can look and know when to throw it to Mr. Dooley, which looks like it's going to be pretty soon. And then we'll go from here right over to Belmont. But again, let us know who you are. Let us know where you are. We got some great pre-tapes coming up. Vanessa Ryle, looking back at the Irish Champions weekend stuff. You're going to get some early clues for Euros to be following for the Breeders' Cup in that segment. And we're going to close things out. I didn't even tell you this, AJ. I did the close in the pre-tape with Matt. So I'll leave 10 minutes early, and I'll let you take it home, and I throw it from that final pre-tape. I'll confirm that with you by text, but that should be easy. All right, let's send it to John Dooley as we get ready for this next live race at Horseshoe, Indianapolis.
Blossom. Over the 6 furlongs, stand by one more. Joe Ramos with Surly, Mike Snugler, both with Randy Klopp. Start here at the late fire 5 from Horseshoe, Indianapolis. On a beautiful one, we are fast and firm. That was out of promises. flipped in the gate.
Oh,
Out
no.
from Promises.
We may have a delay here. Hopefully, Out of Promises is okay. But I have a feeling, I mean, he said flipped in the gate, which it's going to take a minute to sort out. Hopefully, she's A-okay. Got a comment from Richard, who's been a regular in the comments,
So
asking
now we have
about
Alexis
tomorrow.
Santana walking away from the starting gate here as Out of Promises, who flipped in that gate under veterinarian review.
Well, you'd think they'd scratch her after that, but we shall see what happens. Looks like they're taking the girth off, so she will. We'll have to wait another day to see if that long shot idea was right. I suppose I'll now go on to Rachel's creative idea of the
Scratch
6
7 Out of
runner
Promises
here.
after she flipped in the gate. Now there she is, Out of
Better to be
Promises, but a
safe
late
than
scratch
sorry.
here from the sprint. All wagers on 7 Out of Promises. Refunds. There will be a 1 and 7 consolation double. 1 and 7 for a consolation double.
I don't know if they're going to back him out here or not. AJ, we should also
Those
keep
that
an
have
eye
a
on,
7 Out of
on
Promises
Belmont
and
and
a
Aqueduct.
multi-race major. You'll now receive the post-time favorite as your substitute in any multi-race majors. As you see, they're backing all of them out of line.
So this is going to take a second. If we
Scratch.
want to check in on, I don't know if you can
There's the
do
sky
that.
view.
You might have it all on the same
All
picture.
wagers here on 7 Out of Promises.
But we'll have 30 seconds here. If you want to flip over to Belmont at Aqueduct, we'll take a look where we're going there. Richard, in short, yes, Tamara has an excellent shot in the Breeders' Cup. And if you're international, I mean, honestly, I'd much rather back the 2-1 than lay it that I've seen in international markets for Tamara. You know, she probably will run in the 2-turn prep at Santa Anita, so you've got that to sweat. All right, so here is the Belmont race. Oh boy, we're going to end up with a direct clash, aren't we? Here, I don't know if one's going to hold for the other or what. We'll have to zip back and forth. Let me know in the comments who anybody has in this Belmont at the Big A race, which goes as race number 7. Looks like there's plenty of pace. That was my thought, looking for something from a little bit off at the 3 Decanter. What about the Canter here at 7-1 as a contest type horse? I don't mind that idea at all. It's funny. There was not really funny, but there was a late scratch here too. So they're still getting organized. Let's go back and hope, unless this horse loading right away. Yeah, let's go back to Horseshoe Indy. And it's just a mess. It happens. This is one of the reasons why I like the 2-track or I like the 1-track contest better. But they are going to pop at Indy first. So we're going to do Indy, then we'll pull it back and we'll go and maybe we'll catch the last furlong of the Belmont at Aqueduct race. If not, we'll just have to deal with it. Enjoying the chaos here on Thursday afternoon, Horseplayer Happy Hour. But yeah, Tamara, one of my early fancies for the Breeders' Cup, no doubt about it. Just so impressed with the way that she won the other day at Del Mar. Really, really stylish performance. And it came back fast on the clock, which is, the double whammy that you really want to see in these instances. Yeah, let us know any other questions, any other horses. Who's anybody else betting in this race? We can have some roots and follow along as we send it one more time to John Dooley.
Seven's a non-runner, all in. And they're off. Chimes broke sharp.
Ooh,
with Always Blossom.
And
on the front outside, Surly. Snuggler has the white cap. Angels in Disguise and Enchanted Melody comes up the rail. It's Always Blossom. Always Blossom. Worked over toward that rail while clear for Rene Diaz. Always Blossom has made the front from Chimes with on the outside. Surly a close third. Snuggler running in fourth. Length and a half to Enchanted Melody in fifth. Angels in Disguise starts a bit from 6 between horses. My Gal Justice wide at the 3.5. It's a break of 6 more to CFV, to Brutus in the orange cap, who's come past Shiny Shoes. Mr. Sinatra Glory Lady trails the Fillies Mare Sprint. The quarter was 22.85 seconds.
Probably the right move to have taken on this favorite. Not going to work out.
At 3-5 takes the lead from Always Blossom as they come past the quarter pole. They straighten away now, half mile. 46.81. Chimes spins them in front here of Always Blossom. With the rail is Snuggler Enchanted Melody. On the front side, Surly. Then in between horses,
You get a
Angels in
price
Disguise,
second to
CFE
make
2
things
Brutus, Mike Out
interesting. The
Justice
one
Present
running
got
up the
involved.
rail,
But they come past
flattening.
the 16th. She's raced away.
How about
Chimes.
this? Is this a
And
30 to 1
Chimes
shot in
will
second?
take
I wonder
the
if
fifth.
anybody had this thing.
Chimes by 5.5 from Snuggler second, CFE 2 Brutus third, then Enchanted Melody photo with My Gal Justice.
Let's
and
pop right over to Belmont at Aqueduct and see if we can catch the end of that race, or at least a replay of the stretch run. Big favorite wins there, but potential cap second, even with an odds on in first. And they have finished here, and here it was another odds on, a couple odds ons to kick us off here with Don't Look Back at All, getting the job done. Play the Music in second, my selection, Decanter, belated third at 8 to 1. So we'll say hi to Cool Gamer in the comments. And I think with that said, what we might do, hello back, my friend. I think what we might do, AJ, is we'll go to this longer pre-tape to tee things up. This is going to be Vanessa talking about the Irish Champion stuff. And then when we come back, we'll have a chance to recap those two races and look ahead to our final two races on this special edition, live from Toronto, of Horseplayer Happy Hour. I'm in the Toronto. This is a bunker, actually. So we are officially in the Toronto bunker. But we now reach out to look back and look forward at the same time. Here is Vanessa Ryle. Next returning guest, always great to have her here. She's going to be a big part of the Breeders' Cup coverage moving forward, covering the invading runners from France and England and Ireland, and just generally having some fun and helping out with Breeders' Cup social media and all the stuff, collaborative stuff we do between In the Money Media and Breeders' Cup along the way. My colleague from Sky and so much more. Vanessa Ryle, how are things?
Oh, I'm in very good form, thank you. And honestly, even hearing you talking about the Breeders' Cup, it's really ramping up now. Obviously, we had loads of winning your in races over Irish Champions Weekend, which we're going to get to in due course. But it just feels like the Breeders' Cup is really on people's agenda now. You know, loads of post-race interviews, Breeders' Cups are being mentioned, just more and more now. It's exciting. And I think I said it to you when we did one of the first chats about this a while back. I genuinely think this is going to be a really strong year for us, and not just Aidan O'Brien focused. Obviously, he'll take a lot of it for us from the Irish and the English team, but I do think that we're going to have a wider spread, which I'm excited about.
Excellent. And, you know, we'll get into granular detail as things go on. Today, we're going to look back at Irish Champions Weekend, and we're going to start with the Champions Juvenile Stakes, won by the odds-on favorite, Diego Velasquez. What did you think of this effort in the Champions Juvenile Stakes?
Yeah, Group 2 race, winning your in race for the juvenile turf at the Breeders' Cup. So in Diego Velasquez goes. This horse comes with this incredibly high price tag, cost 2-something million at the sales. Beat stablemate Capulet in the process. I think a lot of people's eyes were drawn to the second. If your viewers and listeners out there get an opportunity to watch this race back, it's worth having a look at the second. That horse ran a much better race than we previously seen from him. But focusing in on the favourite and the winner, Diego Velasquez, trained, of course, by Aidan O'Brien, ridden by Ryan Moore. Look, for me, did it cozy at the line. This horse, in all its breeding, he costs so much because he's related to some very fancy types, all trained by Aidan O'Brien. You can look into that yourself. His pedigree and everything about him suggests that he's a Derby horse for next year, or even a St. Ledger horse for next year. So I'm talking middle distance, nudging up towards being a stayer, and that's what he's showing over the mile. This was a mile race, so you know, for these juveniles, plenty staying, enough ability in there, and that's what he showed at the line. He only really gets going at the line. He was strong through it, and he did it cozily in the end. Some people questioning whether Capulet got a fierce enough ride in the closing stages. I don't think he ever would have beaten Diego Velasquez. I think, as I say, it was cozy at the line. In terms of this horse's juvenile turf credentials, it's a no from me. I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the boat, because of the likelihood that Aidan comes over with a big team, will take a swing with some of these 2-year-olds. Of course he will. This horse has won and he's in. But the way in which I just think that he only gets better, he needs every inch of the mile and more. I just don't think Santa Anita Juvenile Turf will be the race for him. Whether
Too
he goes
sharp.
or not. Yeah, too sharp. Yeah, whether he goes or not, he could well be on the plane. Will he win it? It's a no from me.
Interesting. More enthusiasm about Capulet's chances. Should that one turn up, or any others back in the field here, specifically for the juvenile turf at Santa Anita?
Capulet was the eye catcher and is probably a speedier type than Diego Velasquez. But again, still leaning on middle distance rather than the speedy type that's going to be needed for Santa Anita at this stage in a race like the juvenile turf. So I just think for what I saw in that race, that Champions Juvenile Stakes, I don't think it's transferable form to the juvenile turf, a sharp track like that.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. It might make more sense to look for something stretching out. I would say a lot of the 7 furlongs there require comparable stamina to the tight 2-turned mile and a 16th, honestly. And just to define our terms, when you talk about middle distance and what we talk about, we don't really use that term, but what an American probably thinks of is a little bit different. How does the rest of the world define a middle distance race?
Sort of definitely 10 furlongs and above. So, or maybe even 12 furlongs is kind of middle distance. Staying ability up after that. So 14 and 16 furlong races, 2-mile races. That's what I'm looking at in terms of staying ability. But, I genuinely, for using Diego Velasquez as an example, when I'm talking about where we're going to be seeing him to best effect, genuinely, I'm talking 1.5 miles and above.
Right. Let's move on to the Irish Champion Stakes, won by Auguste Rodin, a horse that had so much hype earlier in the season. And then after Ascot, there was a little bit of a will the real. Auguste Rodin stand up. What did you think of what we saw last weekend? And do you think there's a chance we might see this one in California?
Well, of course, the big issue with Auguste Rodin for anyone following this horse and what he's done so far and his Irish Derby win, his English Derby win, all his positives. The negatives around this horse is twice he's come over and has been very well touted for Group 1s in the UK this year, and twice he has flopped. Now, that's in the 2,000 guineas and the King George at Ascot. In between that, he is very much fired at Epsom. But the specifics I'm unsure of, but the chat is that he travelled differently to Epsom than he did to the other 2 meetings, meaning that something about the way this horse travels abroad is being discussed about in a negative way, e.g., can you trust him to fire when he leaves Ireland? Now, he's also won a Group 1 as a 2-year-old at Doncaster over in England. So he travelled fine that day. So balancing it out, he's travelled and won twice, and he's travelled and bombed twice. That's only going to the UK from Ireland. It's a hop and a skip for anyone who doesn't know on the map. So now we've got to talk about this horse travelling over to the Breeders' Cup, settling in, and winning a Breeders' Cup turf, which is what he's won and you're in for, having won the Irish Champion Stakes. Of course, you get the impression that they would love to take a swing at the turf with Auguste Rodin. He's got so much speed and he stays. He's not a big horse. He's tactically very versatile. They've used his stablemates very well. Luxembourg chased him home in the Irish Champion Stakes, and tactics were really to the fore. We'll get to what was in behind in a moment. And they will have, all the tactics lined up for a turf race at Santa Anita, like the Breeders' Cup turf. But I'm worried about him traveling. Right. I know he's done it twice, but given everything I've just said, he would be very short at a Breeders' Cup in terms of a betting proposition. Sure. And you have to have full faith in the fact that he is fine internally. And I just don't think they know when he's going to fire or not. He was very much fancied at the King George at Ascot, and he walked home. He barely even completed the race, so to speak. And there was no even they said afterwards, there's nothing that we could pinpoint beforehand. So if he travels to the Breeders' Cup, you will not know your fate until fate. You will not know your fate. I'm sure you do know your faith. You won't know your fate until after halfway through the race.
I don't know about faith, but I do offer up the occasional sacrifice to the racing gods. I'll say that much. Let's talk about Luxembourg for a minute. Confidently selected on these airwaves by Michael Adolphson, and he wasn't sure that he wasn't more. Not to get into conspiracy theory too much here, but feels like maybe a different kind of ride, a different kind of effort, a little less team tactic-y sort of situation might have actually gotten him to the line first. Is that in the realm of conspiracy theory, or is it conceivable? And what do you think of Luxembourg going forward?
Hey, look, I can totally see why if you backed Luxembourg, you may well have been thinking that. But a little bit like Diego Velasquez with the stablemate in the 2-year-old race that we've just spoken about. For me, I think Auguste Rodin was pretty cozy at the line. I think, again, like Diego, ultimately the best horses won the race. And that's what you want. They're a team. You know that they're going to play team tactics. But Luxembourg shortened to 4-1 before the off. He wasn't unfancied and he was backed before the off. So I very much think that he was a live hope in that race for the same owners as Auguste Rodin. But for me, I think the younger horse carrying that less weight and a class act, was Luxembourg ever really going to get on top at the line? I don't know. I personally don't think so. He ran another excellent race at a track that he clearly brings his A game to, but he's bumped into a well above average stablemate here, carrying less weight than him and with the best jockey in the world on. So
fair enough. Any other thoughts on the Irish Champion Stakes before we move on to the Justify Matron?
Well, we must mention both Nashua and King of Steel if we're talking about kind of conspiracy theories. Very quick mention to him. Not really conspiracy theories, but, angles being discussed post-race is definitely the team tactics involving the Coolmore gang, which resulted in a 1-2 in the Irish Champion Stakes, versus English jockeys leaving their horses with too much to do in behind. Step forward Nashua, who ran another brilliant race. She's not won everything this season, but her last few runs, honestly, she's putting up career best efforts here against really good horses. She did it when we saw her the time before as well. She's done it at Goodwood too. And this is another, she did it then at York against Paddington, Goodwood, and now here. She's solid, but we've spoken about her before, Peter, me and you, in regards to how she didn't enjoy the trip to the Breeders' Cup last year. Will they risk bringing her again? I'm not so sure. So leave that question mark there with her. But King of Steel back and forth, another one being spoken about with a different ride. How close could he have gotten? Don't forget that Kevin Stott has now been given the heave-ho from the owner off the back of this weekend. So lots of factors at play here. But Kia, who owns King of Steel, Ammo Racing Kia, is very much talking about this horse as a Breeders' Cup prospect for the Breeders' Cup, the Longines turf. So that'll be fascinating. He's a big, big horse. That's been spoken of a lot. I don't know if Santa Anita will be the track for him. I'm actually a little bit, I don't think King of Steel is as good a horse as people are saying he is, but that's my controversial view, and I'd be happy to be proven wrong at the Breeders' Cup. I'd love to see him come over for it, and he is being discussed in that realm.
Excellent. We'll follow along. There'll be other runs for all of these horses before. It's, here it's so common now that a lot of these key Breeders' Cup hopefuls have had their last run before the Breeders' Cup, which is wild, but it's just sort of the American training fashion. Not so with these European shippers, I think, in almost every instance. Let's talk about this Justify Matron Stakes and the very charismatic Tahira, who gets the job done and punches the ticket for the Maker's Mark filly and mare turf.
Yeah, and I can definitely, of all the ones we've spoken about so far, if you were to get me to list these horses in order of likelihood of being on the plane to America for a Breeders' Cup, she slots into position 1, no questions asked. Trainer, connections, love to travel. She'll be suited by Santa Anita. She's got options. She could go against the boys in the Longines turf. She could. It's a possibility. She could go in the turf. So she could step up and trip through that. She could go against the boys in the mile race, or she could run in the fillies and mares turf, as you've already said. So she's going to have loads of options. This was a win and you're in for the latter, but there are options for her, and they don't have issues with, if they needed to put her into various races, they could. So fascinating. She travels so well against fillies and mares, against her own sex over here right now at the mile division, or a fraction up from that mile. She's a class act in against what I think is probably a substandard division right now. So I would be fascinated to see her in against the boys. And I think that'll happen over here in Europe. And then I think they'll make a decision about the Breeders' Cup. But whatever happens between now and the Breeders' Cup, even if she was to lose a current unbeaten spell, or if things weren't to go to plan, they're a team that will regroup and go again. This horse, Tahira, had a break since we last saw her. And it was kind of a prolonged break since Royal Ascot. Yep. And there was a few but it was very much made clear to us by trainer Dermot Weld that was always the plan, that's what they wanted to do for the autumn targets, and they freshened her up. She's won here, snug at the line. She's got it all going for her against her own sex, against the boys. I'm really very positive about her.
Love it. Any of the rivals from last weekend to mention quickly before we speed round the Sunday races from the Curragh?
Sorry, I know we always do this, don't we? I tell you one that would be worth mentioning is, of course, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf winner from last year, Meditate. Yes. Hasn't been the filly she was at the back end of last year. She finished in 4th against Tahira here. Very wound up beforehand, paddock notes, very worked up. First time blinkers were reached for. Clearly did the job, and I just wonder if they're getting her very much in for a sharp shape ahead of another Breeders' Cup tilt. So I fear and think she'll be joining Tahira on the plane, and I think there is more to come from Meditate. Yes, we haven't seen it yet, but she ran an eye-catching race in those first-time blinkers, and I just think, given that she's already a Breeders' Cup winner, she's an obvious one to give a mention to. It would be remiss of me not to.
Yeah, love that. Let's talk about the races at the Curragh, albeit quickly, starting with the Flying Five and Moss Tucker.
Yeah, well, this was a serious surprise because, of course, this race had the likes of Highfield Princess, Bradsell, and Art Power as the top 3 in the betting. And I haven't worked out what the price would have been, but for them not to even finish in the first 4 would have been near $1 million to 1. I mean, honestly, they had the market by the bollocks, but essentially, excuse my language. All of them beat. And so on that basis, I think you need to take the Flying Five form with a pinch of salt. Moss Tucker won at 16 to 1, beating a 22 to 1 shot and a 20 to 1 shot. I mean, it was just a very weird race. The first 3 horses home had shown little to no Group 1 place ability up until this moment. And then all of a sudden, this result comes about. Taking it with a pinch of salt, or as a result, I'm being brief on it because there's more important horses to talk about in regards to the Breeders' Cup. But clever training performance from Ken Condon. Delighted it went to plan for him. He could easily roll the dice with a Breeders' Cup because why wouldn't you? But this horse needs proper give in the ground, and he's not going to get that at Santa Anita. And I don't actually think he's one of those horses that in history I think will look back and think that he ran into a shot with a balaclava on his head and robbed a Group 1.
Yeah. I love that. As for the more fancied ones in the market, do you think, are we thinking this race lives in isolation? They'll rebound, have starts between now and then, and potentially we might still see another Highfield Princess run?
We will. Yeah, she heads to France for the Abbey on Arc weekend. All is not lost with her. This was a below par performance from her. She didn't get her jump and go like she has done at the Curragh in the past. Is she the filly of this time last year when she went on that Group 1 winning sequence in 3 different countries in 6 weeks or whatever that spell was? France, Ireland, England, wasn't it? I don't think she's that mare right now, but there's been glimmers of real hope, e.g. when she won at Goodwood. I just don't think they're going to lose hope with her just yet, but you'd want to see it back, wouldn't you? You'd want to see more, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. We got one more race we're going to quickly talk about. Winning your in action for the Juvenile Fillies Turf in the Moigler Stud Stakes. The winner, Fallen Angel. What did you think of this performance? What about the Breeders' Cup implications?
Yes and yes from me, please. Yes, I love the performance. And yes, I think she'll be on the plane. If Tahira is top spot on the list of horses from Irish Champions Weekend to get on the plane, it is very quickly followed in second spot by Fallen Angel and probably third spot by Meditate. Fallen Angel, though, winning this Moigler Stud Stakes over the 7 furlongs, so tough. She was so tough. She did all the donkey work. She got to the front. The second horse, Vespertilio, came upside her. Great drone shot of her going upside her, and you're just waiting for Vespertilio to go past her. Fallen Angel says not a chance of it. Digs real deep, gets so much. She gets stronger at the line. That was over the 7 furlongs over here. She's strong through the line, but she's got plenty of pace. She's not short of pace, not short of a bit of tactical speed as well. I personally, I definitely think they'll take a swing with her over at the Breeders' Cup. Clipper Logistics owned. They've loved having horses over here in the past, love having a go. Carl Burke, do you remember him last year? He had a good couple of horses, good few runs as well. He hit the crossbar, didn't he, a couple of times? And I just think that this horse will be on the list, essentially. I think the team are really behind it. They'll want to give it a go. And I think she's so tough and so versatile that I genuinely can't see why you wouldn't. And now you've won a win in your in race.
We'll be covering a lot more of these Europeans as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup, and Vanessa will be a huge part of it. And Vanessa mentioned before about watching the replays. Yeah, you can find stuff in a lot of different places, a lot on YouTube. But the Breeders' Cup website, actually, if you just go to the list of their Challenge Series races, I'm sure if you just Google Breeders' Cup Challenge Series, there's 2 tabs. You can watch what's coming up, and you can go back to the results, which will give you the winners, but also provide a very quick and easy link to the replay. So you can watch along and form your own opinions. Let us know in the comments what you think, who you're looking forward to seeing run at the Breeders' Cup. Vanessa, until the next time.
Goodbye. Thank you so much. As always, excitement levels are building.
Always a pleasure to talk to Vanessa. Boy, it's been a busy day for me starting off in, I'm not going to call it the Brooklyn Salon anymore. I decided I don't like that name. I'm going to call it Gallery 55. That used to be the sign hanging outside my building when it was an art gallery and music venue before it got turned into condos. That's the upstairs. So we'll have the Brooklyn Bunker downstairs. We'll have Gallery 55 upstairs. We're getting close to Indy, but let's check in the comments. Nancy drinking some Gruner Veltliner. Very nice. Always love that wine with food. And checking in from Chicago. We appreciate you, Nancy, checking in with us. Let us know what else is going on. Let us know if you have any picks in these 2 upcoming races at Horseshoe Indy or Belmont at Aqueduct, both of which we'll be getting into. Vashon chimes in, pleased with Vanessa's somewhat skeptical analysis on King of Steel. We shall see. But Vashon and Vanessa rowing in together on that one. And then Richard with a couple of Breeders' Cup thoughts, asking about White Abario for the Classic. I didn't realize he was out there already. That's interesting. I guess he'll be training up. And Go Rocket Ride. I do think you'll probably see Go Rocket Ride again. And I think you'll probably see Tamara again in one of those big Breeders' Cup Santa Anita prep weekends. We'll be covering it all for you, whether it's on Horseplayer Happy Hour specifically or over at In the Money Media in general. You can check out all our stuff, inthemoneypodcast.com. The absolute best way to keep track of everything we've got going on is through our free email, inthemoneypodcast.com/email. That is the best way to follow along with everything we've got cooking. Richard mentions that it was Wayne Hughes's idea to breed both Dora to Beholder. It only makes sense. That's That's, the big spendthrift stallion with the big spendthrift mare. That's, that would have been his dream. Very, very potent contributor to the thoroughbred business. And this horse definitely carries some of his legacy. And that is a good part of the story. Doesn't surprise me. I hadn't heard that specifically, but it does not surprise me one bit. We're getting ready to get to the next race at Indy. Rachel and I talked about it earlier. We were both on the 8 runner here, 4-1. Oh, yeah, let's keep it here because it feels like we can do this. And then Belmont. And then Matt and I are going to talk about the Breeders' Cup Sprint and Filly and Mare Sprint divisions. I love doing the show live, but the pre-tapes, especially when I'm solo, the pre-tapes are a bit of a godsend. Drew Coatney, busy, no doubt. All about looking at the form for the 3 win and you're in Breeders' Cup races at Woodbine this weekend. I am going to have analysis up at theraces.com, runner by runner for all 3 grade 1s. They're rebranding it like Canadian Championship Turf Day, but I almost wish we could just call it Canadian Champions Day along the lines of Irish Champions Day or English Champions Day, etc. Vashon asked a good question about, big prices for the Breeders' Cup. It's too early, Vashon. We'll get there. We'll get there for sure. The best thing I'll say, look, we're going to have a ton of free content, but if you sign up for our In the Money Plus, especially, we're going to have so much Breeders' Cup info focusing on exactly that kind of question. InTheMoneyPodcast.com/plus for that. But if you don't, for whatever reason, you can't spend that extra dough to support us, you'll be able to glean very similar information from what we do here on Horseplayer Happy Hour and the In the Money Players podcast, Matt Bernier Show, all the brands under our umbrella. All right, we're getting ready for the gates to pop here at Horseshoe Indy. I'm with the 8 runner. We're trying to beat this favorite. Really, these 2 favorites market really between the 4 and the 9 here. We're hoping our 8 can get the job done. One more approaching. And with that, we'll send it off to John Dooley.
Blue joins, so stand by. One more. Here comes Spotting Showers. Green, white diamond belt and cap. Spotting Showers, Sammy Bermudez with a couple of wins on the card. Jingle and Chimes. Here's Spotting Showers, 8-5 favorite to ring up a 3rd. All in. And they're off. Dash of Simplicity, Stormy Wager, nearest the inside, Swift Temple, Chelsea Strength. Here comes a bid by Belgian Blue, and on the outside, Spotty Showers. Gets position as they head toward the first turn. It's Stormy Wager with Fernando de la Cruz. Stormy Wager has the early lead from a close-up Belgian Blue. Spotty Showers, green with the white diamond belt and cap, is forwardly placed out to the stretch. Dash of Simplicity and the red cap. Outside that is Chelsea Strength. Then comes Swift Temple and Skip Injustice with 6 furlongs to run. It's Stormy Wager. Stormy Wager dictates her own terms to Belgian Blue, Dash of Simplicity. Spotty Showers in the leading quartet. Chelsea Strength drafting in behind them, some 4 lengths off this leader. It's Stormy Wager as they go up the back of the course. Skip Injustice relegated. Swift Temple to last. 24.13 for the lead part, and Stormy Wager leads them to a half mile from home, 3/4 length. Janelli keeps Belgian Blue close in tow. Dash of Simplicity and Spotty Showers right there close up to Stormy Wager as they head to the far turn. Chelsea Strength remains in 5th place.
This is the
then
other
Swift
favorite
Temple, and
on
outside
our
that
here.
is Skip Injustice. Half mile
No
for Stormy
hurry.
Wager. 50.24 seconds inside, 3 furlongs to go. They're aiming still for Stormy Wager, looking to make every yard here for Fernando de la Cruz at the quarter pole from on the outside. Spotty Showers now
Looks
coming
like
with
it'll
her
be the
bid.
2 Favs
Straight
unless this
and
thing
away.
falls apart.
Belgian Blue chased the pace. Dash of Simplicity launching a rail run. Chelsea Strength.
Actually, I missed this Dash
Skip
of
Injustice
Simplicity.
and Swift Temple. It's still Stormy Wager. 3/4, 1 minute 14.68 seconds. Stormy Wager with 1 furlong to go. Holds Dash of Simplicity. Skip Injustice lead past Spotty Showers 4th. Stormy Wager wire to wire. Skip Injustice might have just gained 2nd from Dash of Simplicity. Photo Spotty Showers finished 4th. Stormy Wager made every yard a winning one.
Let's move over to Belmont at Aqueduct and see if we can have any joy there for their 8th race. We've got these $40,000 claimers. Race that doesn't look like there's a ton
Roman
of
got
pace in
us
it.
by 3/4 of a length.
Oh, we're already off.
Dashing
Wow.
Della, who's now moving right alongside of Roman Goddess. Roman Goddess, Dashing Della, their heads apart with
I
Ghostly
might have tried
Girl
the 6.
moving into 3rd. Harlan's Bond on the outside in 4th. Shigeko advances down at the rail. And on the outside is My Girl Jal. Up front, Roman Goddess on the inside and Dashing Della on the outside. And the two of them are right together through a half and 46 and 4/5 seconds, with Ghostly Girl sitting in 3rd, but 3.5 lengths off the lead.
Roman Goddess
asks
finding.
for more down at the rail. Dashing Della, the long shot on the outside. Ghostly Girl continues to gain as they pass the 8th pole. It is Roman Goddess in front. Roman Goddess has a 2.5 length lead. Ghostly Girl moves into 2nd. It will be Roman Goddess by a little more than 2. Ghostly Girl was 2nd, then Dashing Della in 3rd.
Chalk there. I think we'll skip the leaderboard update here at the end, AJ, because it's going to put us too far over time, and I know the site was being grumpy anyway. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to close out today's show with a look at the Breeders' Cup Sprint and Filly and Mare Sprint with me and Matt Bernier. That's a pre-tape we can get to right now. Out the show, I guess I should say, last but not least, certainly not least, we bring in one of the men associated for creating Horseplayer Happy Hour. We've had the great pleasure of catching up with him several times throughout the year to look at these anti-post divisions for the Breeders' Cup. That's what we're going to be doing here today with a man you'll see on NBC this weekend. You know him from his own eponymous podcast, the work he does at TVG FanDuel TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's up?
I got to be honest, Pete, I've been looking at the numbers, checking out how these Horseplayer Happy Hours have gone. They look like the numbers have been pretty solid all season.
It's been good. It's been good. You know, I still feel like there's got to be some way, and maybe we'll brainstorm in the off season to like take it up to even another level, because even though, and we're very grateful for all the support we get, we're not an ingrate here, but it's such a good opportunity and for such a good cause. And these live streams are so much fun. I feel like we could even be doing more. So I'll bother you for some free consulting about that. But yeah, the numbers have been solid. We're trying a number of different concepts this week. For the first time all season, we're doing this exact mirror of the horseplayers.com lineup. We'll see if that maybe gets us a few extra entries. We've got Belmont, we've got Indy. That'll be fun. But, and of course, we got lots of Breeders' Cup Win and You're In stuff coming up this weekend. We're going to be covering that elsewhere on the network. I was thrilled to hear, though, that you will once again be up there for the Woodbine Mile this weekend. So that's going to be a ton of fun. They draw on Wednesday. Have you done any like pre-homework? We're recording this on Tuesday, so even though you're watching it on Thursday, we haven't seen the fields yet. But you do any pre-work on this stuff?
Had a little editorial meeting just a couple hours before we tape this. I've got to do the deeper dive into the North American contingent, but if Master of the Seas shows up as good as we last saw him, he's probably going to be a handful. And I believe, don't quote me, but I'm fairly certain, Appleby has won with the last 7 horses he sent to Woodbine. So do with that what you will. And I believe most of them have been blowout wins. So something to just keep in the back of your mind when you think about going against Master of the Seas.
Yeah, and whatever juvenile, you assume he'll have some juvenile participation as well. From our chat with Jim Lawson early in the week, sounds like the Phillies race in particular is just going to be absolutely loaded. I'm hoping Chad Brown decides to send up some good ones, maybe to take on Master of the Seas, but I could also see him maybe rerouting based on a proper informed Group 2 winner from Appleby coming over. No inside info on that. We'll see what happens when we have a draw. I'll be doing write-ups for all 3 of those races actually over at theraces.com. Matt will be covering thoroughly over at NBC. Watch him there. All right, let's start with the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Now, this is one where, I should be all proper and pull up a graphic on this division. Though we all know who's at the head of the class here in terms of the market, and that's Elite Power. Even with facing defeat the last day to Gunite. The current best prices: Elite Power 5-2, Gunite 11-2. Is there too much between those two?
I think so. Perhaps it's a little bit different at 6 compared to 7, but we just saw Gunite beat Elite Power on the square. I know the pace was pretty tepid that day when he won the forego, but I think those two horses are very, very close as far as talent is concerned. And also the other thing that you always have to keep in the back of your mind, the running style. It does seem like Gunite's always going to have, not always, but more often than not, the head start. And boy, when you're going 3/4 of a mile, that's not a bad thing, is it?
No, not at all. You wonder if in a race like the Breeders' Cup Sprint, the script could flip with there being a bunch of burn off speed potentially in there. And if that's the case, I mean, I think that's why the bookies have it the way they do with Elite Power as the favorite, just making an assumption that it's going to be this huge speed fest. But I don't know. At the same time, this isn't necessarily your older uncle's Breeders' Cup Sprint with just tons of flat out speed signed on, is it? I mean, would it shock you if you had 10, or fewer, and maybe it still could be a pace advantage for Gunite?
No, and I guess that's the thing. I mean, before we came on, I said to you, I wish I had something cute or creative, but I could see this being one of the smaller fields Breeders' Cup weekend. I could see 8, 9, maybe 10. Because it's bad enough or tough enough if you have one big horse that you need to beat, but when you've got two that kind of stand out above everyone else, I guess, and I don't know the situation, but Straight No Chaser doesn't have any works recently, so he would be one that if for whatever reason he got back on the tab, but you're running out of time here, if you're trying to get ready for the Breeders' Cup. Beyond that, I really have a hard time getting too cute, too creative with anyone else. Maybe Arabian Lion, but even that, I mean, I just don't know that he's as good as those top two.
Right. And also you'd think Arabian Lion, there's also the whole Dirt Mile potential fly in the ointment. Echo Zulu's actually listed in the betting for this. Do you think there's any chance she turn up here going 6 rather than going the 7 in the FM Sprint? I wasn't thinking there was much chance, but it's interesting that she's in the betting.
I mean, truth be told, I'd have to look and see like how different are the purses for those two races. If there's a chasm, maybe, because part of me does wonder if Echo Zulu is better going 6th than 7, where you can just bottom her out, open her up, just really empty the tank as soon as you possibly can. Obviously, same owner trainer as Gunite, so that would seem counterintuitive. You're not going to run each other against, into each other. And also on top of that, in terms of the filly and mare sprint division, I mean, she just beat Goodnight Olive, and I think there's a couple other intriguing runners in there, but I mean, she is clearly head and shoulders the best. I don't see any reason why they would, unless they're just kind of chasing the money. But again, when you've got Gunite, why would you run to them against each other?
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and also part of the reason why I suppose we haven't mentioned Cody's Wish as a possibility for the sprint, because that could be exciting, but it sure seems like with that joint ownership situation, they're going to make, and I haven't heard this official yet, but looking at the betting, it seems like they're just going to make a tilt at the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile again. Does that match what you've heard and or what you expect to have happen?
Yeah, and the other thing too, and maybe this, I don't have anything to really back this up. To me, 6 seems very sharp. If we thought that he was going to be a mile and an eighth kind of horse, I just don't think he's a 6 furlong type. And if he is a 6 furlong type, like you say, you've got the common piece with Mott as a trainer. I think Elite Power is probably better at 3/4 than a horse like Cody's Wish would be. So Cody's Wish, we know he can handle 2 turns. We know he can handle the mile. I don't see any reason why you change that up. And again, I hate to be kind of Captain Obvious. I just think the sprint division is kind of crystallized at the top, and you could even say the same about the girls division.
And let's pivot to that for a couple minutes quickly. I can't find betting on this, but you know who the favorite would be. That would be Echo Zulu. Goodnight Olive, I mean, I thought ran admirably without any kind of setup and doing her own dirty work the last day. If there was enough speed to, potentially push Echo Zulu, maybe I could look at that one as a second choice upset possibility. Not going to be any huge price. Goodnight Olive, but curious to hear your take on those two and the rest of the female filly and mare sprinters.
Yeah, if Echo Zulu runs her race, I think everybody else runs her second. To your point, I thought Goodnight Olive ran well. But again, the dynamics are always going to be against her. She's going to need somebody else to be up there kind of making life miserable for Echo Zulu, I think, to turn the tables. It's not to say that she can't run a big race and be competitive, but I think the other one is better. If I was trying to get really kind of cute, and again, I don't know that she's good enough for this, but I really like Alpha Star. I think every one of her races has been strong. I think if she went out for a larger outfit, more people would know her name, or she would be more than just sort of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but on closing weekend, the last race you were thinking of really was the Prioress with everything going on. So I think she's very good, and maybe 7 wouldn't be her game, but she's done nothing wrong throughout her career. That run at Delaware 2-back was, I think, to me, kind of the tipping point that, okay, not only is she quality, but she actually may be grade 1 quality. And 7/8's probably pushing it a little bit. But if I was looking for anyone outside of the top 2, it would be her.
You'd have a big price. Is that one you could see winning the whole thing, or more one to play with the top 2 in exotics in a contest like the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge?
I would almost go as far as to say, if you think it's the top 2, and let's say you're kind of in my camp where it's Echo Zulu and then it's Goodnight Olive, maybe you try to split the 2 of them and you throw Alpha Star in second. I don't know if she's fat. I mean, if Echo Zulu is running 110s and 112s, I mean, I don't think anybody can do that. But I don't see any reason why Alpha Star can't jump up into a low mid 100, which would make her tough with Goodnight Olive. So I'd probably try to split the 2 of them if you're playing cold trifecta, something like that.
Yeah, get Alpha Star in the frame there and juice up your exotic payments. Well, Matt, always a pleasure to have you here. We'll check in with you again. Get to see you in person this weekend. Do you know when the NBC coverage is yet, or TBD?
5 o'clock Eastern, I want to say. We're on for an hour, 5 to 6. We'll have the Natalma, I believe it's the Natalma, and then the Woodbine Mile, the big one.
Terrific. Both Breeders' Cup winning your in races, as is the summer. You can watch that on your local ADW. Matt, thank you so much. Thanks to all of today's guests. Really appreciate all these extra contributions, especially people dropping shout outs in the comments, giving their opinions. The interactive nature of the show, one of the most fun things for all our friends at the Breeders' Cup as well. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.